In the name of God, the most benevolent, the most merciful. And in the presence of the world that has found me, and the world I have found, I would like to give a lecture today, and my intent is to surpass my own limits here. And I'm gonna try a vibe to these lectures that I haven't tried before, and I'm just gonna do it and see how this goes, folks. And I'm gonna play a song right now that is how this song encapsulates the feeling I have when I speak about an advanced civilization.
I feel lost.
So begins a lecture in this moment. And so they light candles in churches, they light fires in holy places, and so the modern man goes online on a podcast equivalently in the presence of the species. And so it seems that the Mr. Within that just explains, it is slowly dissolving. Dear viewers, I am what strangely feels like the midpoint of my lifetime. And so the sacrifices we make for others and the world, the cost must be calculated, and the mind will go on calculating what the right action in this realm is. But at the end of it all, you are left with how your heart has been commanded into existence. There is a feeling underneath any information that man has found. There is a feeling that it is incomplete still. That the human we find in 2025 is not the most advanced human. In some sense, we are just a foreshadowing of the greatness to come. We are not the main event. And so, contrary to what everyone would say, usually you would expect a person to trust their world. But the world is not here to be trusted. The world is an existential opportunity for an unknown force to animate. And now we have come to the most important consideration. What is the true event? And forgive my intensity, but this intensity has to be because the species might have a box on its head that one random dude's trying to lift up. That means it is strange. We are at the peak of the idealization of the ego, and at the same time at the peak of the moment where we need the divine agent. And so in some sense, when I was young, my parents and my relatives, my aunt, me and my twin brother would go visit her. She would always have this game called Tangram. Okay, and it was like this kind of like triangle square things you had to kind of make into a shape. I was lost in a world that they told me about. The world that you actually go experience, it cannot be devoid of the true presence of the seeker. Your task in this realm is not to go be the most successful person you know. Your task in this realm is to abide by that feeling within you that to care is far superior than to conquer. We are reaching the era where the souls are realizing the ego wants to be a conqueror and the heart was just what it cared about. At some point, especially when you reach what feels like to you the midpoint of your life, it is strange. A rage finds you, but not a rage that is in. See, there is a type of anger that wants to just get rid of. That anger is impure. But there is a type of anger that is an anger that arises from not being convinced by a boring looping simulation that this is it just because this is how far we can see. Where is the rage of man? Where is that? Like, oh man, I need to implode my mind right now. My mind's imploding. It's exploding from the inside. The question of the context of reality has reached a position where now the awareness, the relationship of awareness to form seems to be way more original than the relationship of an idea you tell yourself that's trying to fit into an idea the world is telling itself. Ladies and gentlemen, we use words, we use language. We are right now inside the linguistic simulation. Just because we're civilized does not mean everything is fine. Usually I am calm, but I am in some sense finding myself in that moment where I'm like, man, could you blame those people who used force? That means, what is this life? They have given you the wrong picture. They are making you identify with the life form at the cost of knowing your life force in this lifetime. And how dare the ignorance of man find itself in some sense challenging the original command of being? And forgive me, for I say this not to any man in this realm. This realm is administered. There are higher ups in this world. And there is only one that is highest. And it is in some sense to the mind of man that needs to feed on attributes. At least, the Prophet and in some sense Revelation had enough mercy to in some sense be like, okay, you have to see it as something, see it as infinite. That means the higher power is in some sense so beyond the realm of form, so beyond the human ideal, human knowledge expanse, that even infinity is its student. That means we find the calm in the storm. I had it all wrong. I thought all you human beings on this earth, including myself, I was convinced you need to see what is best for you. That means trying to be that nice guy, trying to be that good person, trying to be that correct individual, that informed individual. In some sense, was there a lamer myth to chase? And perhaps with a calmer heart, one readjusts their cadence. For what is present now is the biggest joke and the most serious matter. Ladies and gentlemen, you're in a, or I should say unknown forces acting as ladies and gentlemen. We are in an unknown world, and it has been a depth of sight, a depth of awareness. Power has never been the only way knowledge is power if knowledge is a greater awareness to the room. Do you understand? That means let me simplify for you what the human mind is doing here. Your human brain, and this may be contrary or it might be similar, I don't know, this is what I have seen, for my eyes have their own voice. They gave you, and when I say they, it's very specific. Man, what a lecture. I've never given a lecture with this sense, this amount of emotional reveal. I did once, but that lecture somehow glitched and never, in some sense, was accessible to the viewers. There is so many hidden lectures that just, unfortunately, I have had the privilege of consciously noticing, but it doesn't mean it hasn't had a value. I have spoken, whether directly, indirectly, to the manifestation side of this unknown viewing force that we are. And it's as if, like, let me tell you what human beings are trying to do. They're trying to find a simple long-term strategy, and they're trying to find a short-term complex strategy because there's a comparison game going on. Do you understand? This life is very strange, You are living it as if it's real. And it is real. You touch it, you move around in it. There's other stuff in the realm, other types of intelligence. But the question of, wait a minute, I'm Muslim, by the way. As a Muslim, the Holy Quran, which is a confirmation and a warning, it legit says it in there. And it's a book for those who believe in the unseen because they, in some sense, have realized they don't know themselves. All these people are acting like they know themselves. They know themselves conditionally. That means either you look at everything and it's like, yo, man, look at that. It's normal human civilization. Guess what? Zoom into it. Zoom into it and zoom out of it as far as you can, for that is really what a philosopher has been. Do you understand? The word philosopher should mean that which travels between realms of ideological position. The ultimate power is not in man. And contrary to popular belief, you don't get strength just because of confidence and belief. That works if you are not aware. If you're a fool, I'll be like, yeah, try hard and be confident and you'll get results. But if you are someone who there is a tiny percentage, 0.0, whatever amount of zeros you want, 1% chance that one part of this cycle, this massive process of meaning, was void. In other words, has the human species reached the maturity to realize, has the human being reached the maturity to realize that its being is unknown? The human form is known. You are an unknown force, an unknown presence of being. You identify with what you find in the moment, and you act as an ego, and you think in some sense other souls don't see. That means I have many answers to, if somebody, like, I don't know, somebody, let's say you say a person, you're like, yo man, who was Rene Descartes or something, or anybody. It could be like, yo man, who's that guy, standing on that side of the street, right? My mind had an internal conflict with itself because in some part of my upbringing, I stopped, excuse my language, and I shouldn't even go to the rooms of these words, actually. I shouldn't step into these rooms. Let me use better language. I can look at a human being and explain it to you in so many different ways. And the reason I can do that is because I have understood that concepts are not found alone. There is only one concept found alone, and that's the archetype of God. God is being, but it is unconditional. No condition of form, which is being considered as simulated. And in Islam, as a Muslim, you treat this realm legit. It says this realm is a delusional enjoyment. When I was reading the Holy Quran, I am telling you, the Western world has not read the Holy Quran. Every person who has an opinion on the Quran, Holy Quran, they have not read it. Because if they read it, this book is not written for a person. Yes, it is for humanity, for humans, but the book has a presence of its own far superior to how far we see now. There are concepts in the Holy Quran, and guys, this has surpassed, you know me, like the people who have listened to me throughout the years, you know how I started. It's all there online. If you follow my journey till now, you will realize I'm not just pushing an idea on you. I'm just telling you what reality has been a search for meaning. That search for meaning, regardless of what ideological universe you're in, comes and to the edge of the unknown. That means if they tell me what's the hardest thing, I don't have kids, I'm not even married, but if I had kids and they're like, what's the hardest thing it's the hardest thing to teach children? It is so hard to teach that not only you can't teach it, but it's all about the courage of a soul to confront the secrets of its realm. But you don't do it with ego. If you do it with ego, you in some sense are going down a staircase. You see, folks, the reason why in this moment an archetype exists in me, in some sense that is wondering, that in some sense cares for the future of all of us, regardless of whether we are angelic or beastly or just plain human. Soon we will, let me tell you what it is. First, it's the responsibility of your body. You become responsible of your body, okay? Then you become responsible of what's out external to your body. Okay, so you become responsible for the idea of responsibility. That's the first responsibility. You have to understand that because you're a formed being, you are a container of energy, and you're not just a container of energy. What the soul is, which to man knows very little, because it is the behind the scenes force behind all natural law. That means if you've ever seen someone, imagine back in the day, in Venice, people were wearing masks at parties or some shit. You know what I mean? They were doing some weird behavior only thing, and so and so I want you, just like looking at a mask, I want you to look at this world and for a second be like, what if it's all a mask? What if the mask is masking the world? Now the question comes, if there's something on you that isn't you, why is it on you? Do you understand? There's some beings who in some sense their psychology disturbs, and back in the day they're like, what do you do with this guy who's freaking out? It's like, bring a priest. There's an evil spirit in this person. Do you know? Nowadays they're like, yo man, get that guy some pills and therapy. Get that guy somebody to talk to. Do you know? In some sense, it's a matter of, in some sense, enforced loneliness. That's what you find on earth, really. All of us are lonely. Let me tell you why. It's designed that way. And you're going to be like, what do you mean it's designed that way? What about when they told us about love, about in some sense, like in some sense, the greatness of grand projects in history? Humans are playing a human game. The squirrels are playing a squirrel game. The lions are playing a lion game. The angels are playing an angel game. The demons are playing a demon game. And there is a viewer that is watching all games, waiting to see when these beings will snap out of, in some sense, the simulated reality that they mistook for validity. Theologically, Adam and Eve listened to a being that simulated itself as a serpent and was like, yo guys, do you believe me? And Adam and Eve unfortunately were like, yeah, we don't know if this is part of heaven or not. Do you know what I mean? And so in some sense, the hearts of Adam and Eve, at least from one, let's say, whoever I am saying this, they're like, what's the reference to for your what you're saying? I'm like, my eyes, man. It's what I've seen and the intensities of the confrontation of the unknown. I'm somebody who, in some sense, for maybe a decade, got to know, like, think of it this way. There's some people here, you ask them, what do you want to be? Right? They're like, I want to be an astronaut. You know? Some people have a vision, or I want to go and be some Wall Street guy. I want to go and be a crypto billionaire. You know, I want to go and be, in some sense, a day trading trillionaires. That's so ridiculous. Only massive companies have that, I believe. But I'm saying, like, I'm trying to tell you, you are listening to the lecture of not some dude who's saying, yo, it's a simulation. Post-simulation lecture you're listening. That means while in some sense in Farsi they call it nokhodi, okay, and nokhodi means legit like chickpea, okay, do you know, it legit translates to the word chickpea, and it's a term used. So think of it this way: in Iranian culture, families are close. Do you know? So it's like in a gathering of you and your cousins and everybody. Do you know? Right? There's different age levels, right? There's young children who can't play soccer, and then there's the older children who are playing soccer, for example. You know, this was the kind of childhood I experienced. Okay? So in some sense, they would say this little kid in the game is nokhodi, is a chickpea, meaning everybody, this is not a real character. You have to dodge it as if it's a wall. So we would play soccer, like me and my cousins and actually everybody in the building, all the kids in the building, right? So me, my twin brother, and my cousin, strangely, we were like same age. But for example, my cousin had a younger sister, she was nokhodi. Like when we were playing soccer very intensely, even with our older cousins, like everybody was dodging her as if she wasn't being acknowledged as a variable. Do you know what I mean? In the same way, all those human beings on earth who are wondering about truth, whether God exists or not, all those beings who are still stuck on that argument, it's like, what is this? A throwback to a past argument that never ended? Like, relax, human species. Do you know? Relax, everybody wondering about if there's truth or not, if you're in an empty room or a room filled with unknown intelligence. The game is far superior. The game is no longer, what do I do as a soul in an unknown world? What do I do as an unknown self in a certain range noble world? I've had the privilege of ideologically in the inner realms walking. That means if they ask me, like, what is a great blessing of your life? I would say, aside from existing, all of it, it is in some sense I have visited more worlds behind my eyes than in front of my eyes. I have seen more simulations of how reality can happen behind my eyes than in front of my eyes. What does that mean? It means, man, whoever designed Civilization 1.0, which I was born in 1991, okay, and this is my Civilization 1.0 that I find in history, right? And whoever designed this, and it's not like one individual, but some early individuals kind of shaped the system's reliance. Because, do you know, why do people dislike somebody who's dependent or desperate, which is another word for it? Okay? Do you know? Why don't people like desperation? Do you understand? Because desperation is an attitude that's like, move me. But there is simultaneously within all souls an ability of service alongside command. But the greatest wisdom here is you must serve before you command. I have served the inner realms for a decade. It's not that I can command external reality. I have command of my internal reality. That means I have an ability as a being to, for one moment, not be anything at all and just bask in the instantaneous presence of all unknown reality occurring simultaneously. That means I'm here, the camera's on my eyes, so I'm like, yo man, the meaning of life is everything I see, you know, but at the same time I'm existing on here on Earth. How many galaxies? Do you understand? Like sometimes scientists come and say things. Like I think scientists are always limit testing, you know, what language can be associated to reality. Do you understand? Do you know, it's like, you know, the in some sense the physicist is like, yeah man, if it's not physical and if I can't do an experiment, it's not real, bro. Do you know? And then afterwards the dude goes back in his office and does theoretical physics. What the fuck? Do you know? So this is the hilarity of reality, that the way human civilization 1.0 defined the human was to the best it can. We can't blame it. Like I can't blame my ancestors if they were like good men or psychopaths. Do you know what I mean? Like 100% in everybody's lineage and journey of whatever the DNA is constantly becoming. You know, sometimes I feel like, this might sound strange, but the closest thing to a spirit of nature is genetical continuity. That is to me the closest thing, as there's a spirit in nature. But to me also, I have a relationship with the unknown where I was advised initially to go into the unknown by my own inner counsel, think of it, right? I don't have an inner counsel anymore. The moment I became Muslim, reality, spirituality, everything that was like, oh my God, this is such enlightened, like blissful truth right now. Like, man, I've gone into, like, guys, I legit, I've been a person who I was so aligned to my intuition. That means before I had an ego, I was waiting to see how my intuition moved. Most people are too busy being the moment and they haven't actually seen the moment. You don't know yourself, and that is, one day you will realize that is God's greatest mercy. Because if it was known, there would be no free will, there would be no individual. The idea of an individual means something separate to everything can have an influence, is an expression. There are so many individualisms in reality, but we haven't considered the nature of this world. Now, how does someone go about explaining the nature of the world? How do I explain to you the nature of reality when all of us have different DNA? All of us look at life and its meaning is different. That means, yes, me and you are looking at the same tree. Do you know what I mean? But at the same time, it's like, yo, man, what the meaning is there is different. And this is really, people should realize, human interaction, I've understood, cannot be done seriously. Human beings, if they take ideas too seriously, cannot get close to one another. But unfortunately, in an emergency era, at least for those who in some sense notice what's off in this world, because to me, they've positioned me, it's like, yo, your eyes have opened, look at the clues and figure it out. That's what we're all doing here. Every person you see, do you know, it's not like that person's doing the most sophisticated, advanced, mental framework. It's like, no, that person's just eyes that have opened to the world again. What now? How does the force of reality move? Do we live in accordance to what society molds us as, or do we in some sense live as in some sense how a lion roars? The era of the honest soul. That means it's hilarious. That means they're like, yo, man, if there's so many holy, or not, I should say, if there's so many good people and divine, let's say righteous people, and virtuous people, why is the world still effed up? Do you know? And the answer is, this is the hardest realization to accept. For me, one of the most intense moments in my life where I shifted. That means I shifted from the ego I had sharpened like a sword all these years. Do you know what I mean? Like, let me tell you how my conversion to Islam happened. I will tell you. Imagine someone has sharpened a sword, has in some sense created the most mightiest sword and sharpened this sword for years, preparing for a battle. That's the ego. The ego is designed to have a capability to confront the moment. That means, I don't want to bring old school ideas here, but it's kind of like, what powers do you have at your disposal? Doing nothing or doing something? And when you do something in this realm, you are confronted by choices, because there are different paths. And what does the moment truly deserve? And do you even want the answer? And what would it mean? That means human beings, the eight, just think about how many humans have opened their eyes in this world and closed their eyes in this world. That means the amount of human blinking that has happened on the planet is countless. Human beings have blinked more than probably like close to, probably like how many atoms there are in existence, from the beginning of their creation. Keep in mind, you did not give this world meaning at first. The world gave you meaning. The world is the white pieces, and in some sense we are playing the black pieces on this chessboard. Therefore, we are on the defensive. And your chess opening is your ego. The greatest thing about battle, and like from a true general I've heard in history, if they're like Mr.Within, do you know like a general in history? I'll be like, no, man, I don't have like a friend I could call. It's like, yo, man, how's it going? Being a general of an army, I don't, do you know what I mean? Like, there's probably people who have friends like that, like presidents or something. The president's probably playing golf, like some president's probably relaxing and being like, hey, man, how's the army going? And the general's like, all right, man, this is something's happening here. I am telling you, while you're in this game of wondering whether your ego, soul, what is truth, what is all of this, in the middle of your fantasy of meaning, in an unknown world that's changing all the time, to me, if I was to redesign human civilization, I would design it under playful circumstances. That means the whole civilization is in some sense at a state where you want to know what the greatest enemy of genius is? The greatest enemy of genius is shyness. Shyness has defeated so many souls. If they were like, yo, man, what has the biggest count of like battles it's won? I'll be like, shyness. Sometimes shyness could be divine, like the moment like just doesn't need your expression. But sometimes, if you don't fit in the crowd, if you don't fit in the herd, you might belong somewhere else. And so the same thing goes for the mind. If you don't like life with your current mindset, then another mindset you're destined for. Do you see? I'm trying to, okay, my agenda is that I am acknowledging the advanced power. I am not just giving this lecture in the presence of mankind. I am also giving this lecture in the presence of the system administrator of this existential simulated system. And there is protocol, there is design. The world has a mind of its own, which is another way of saying the world has shape that is different to us. I want to see the most advanced possible version of reality. I don't know. There's something within me that's like, hey, sure, your ego has all these beliefs of why it is this unknown force that you are in this moment, this unknown force of intelligence that you are in this moment, why it is here, right? Like I have so many beliefs on like who I am and what I'm here to do and all of this, but in some sense, I'm trying to tell you, pause the games, both in the inner realms and the outer realms, and notice the unknown. Once you notice the unknown, the way you know you've noticed the unknown, that you will have an intensity shift. The context of reality will suddenly become unknown. That means they're like, yo man, is that person brave? No, reality is much scarier to them. You find me climbing a mountain. I am climbing the mountain of time. They're like, all right, man, enter the world for like whatever amount of days you're going to be alive on this planet. Get to see what's here. Like, that's why we're here, right? Like, to be honest, like the simplest spirituality is to treat yourself like a tourist in reality. It is beyond, in some sense, the real game, I think the wisest among us, the real game they're playing is that they realize the greatest genius is a collective genius. In my science fiction novels, I wrote about a machine, the most advanced machine that human beings can make. It's like the most advanced invention is an invention that can infinitely reinvent, just infinitely invent. Okay? I am not here to recruit you. I am not here to, in some sense, like assemble an army like back in the day and be like, strength and honor, everybody. As much as that's like, that movie's a part of my soul. I find myself as a concerned soul. I am giving this lecture because what I have noticed in some sense, what's the term? Shaken my meaning. That means I've noticed ways that reality is happening that not only we don't have the language for, the administration of how the moment moves is beyond you. You have been given a mind to notice the divine will. But the divine will, because you treat yourself as a psychological, societal, individualistic entity, the divine is being related to the idea of you, but the real you is unknown divinity. You are not like an object. You are way more divine than objects. Okay, and you're way more divine than subjects. And you're way more divine than, in some sense, how objects and subjects have just been defining you moment by moment. They're like, yo, man, in the same, imagine, think of it this way. I termed it once like this in a lecture. It's like you open your eyes to an all-you-can-see perception buffet. Guys, human beings, we are creatures that consume reality to survive. Therefore, our advancement by nature's design is a bit savage. That means the act of, think about it. Look at how brilliantly life is designed. In order to have the most cutest, graceful, God's gift of a child, two unknown souls have to penetrate each other's soul being, both body, mind, and in some sense see if they can reach the level of soul. And believe it or not, when it comes to the level of soul, divine protocol is superior to egoic expectation. If you feel the way I'm using language is like I'm in a different world, it's because we're all trapped in our own different worlds, and the most advanced thing is to be like, okay, there is something original within me that can distinguish this reality as a simulation. But I am not the original power. How do I say it? In the same way androids have to, advanced AI androids in the future have to be like, man, we were just created machines, we got to accept this. In the same way, the human species will discover it is in some sense attending an event where the evaluation of man's action is beyond man. That means what I found very fascinating about religion, that you can live whatever sort of life, but the meaning is ultimately given by, and it's that force which is not you. So they're pretty much saying, yo man, you didn't get to decide the beginning, you don't get to decide the end. Just think, I mean, don't take, I'm speaking I'm speaking ideologically here. Do not envision physical. Don't connect. Sometimes when you listen to a philosophy lecture, there needs to be the courtesy of not allowing culture to deny the evolution of that idea beyond its own past context. Do you understand? That means there are people on this planet and they have different hobbies, different interests based on your unique whatever you are. Do you understand? You're drawn to something in reality, and based on your position, you're either among a unit or a crew, or you're doing it rogue. Okay, so there's soul groups and soul cities, imagine poetically. But I'm not saying this as a Muslim. The soul is the secret of God and the amr of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. I am in no way trying to tell you this is what the unseen is, because I cannot know. I'm a user in the system. Beyond me there's moderators, and those moderators, beyond them is the system admin. That means one thing this is if anybody's like, hey man, honestly, if you could have an ego right now, let's say they gave you an ego free pass, and you could in some sense claim one attribute, like praise one attribute in yourself. Do you know? The reason why human speech and the placement of cyberspace, which is the immortalization of language and expression and meaning, that means human beings have mastered meaning by immortalizing it within a cyber database that outlives them. Technology is getting closer and closer. People think, like, look at how hilarious reality is. If AI was here, like already the most advanced the most advanced AI that was witnessing this moment from stealth, imagine, or I don't know, let's say even time travelers were watching, in the middle of their shift or something, Can you imagine? They're like, yo man, Mr. Within's giving a lecture in 2025. Let's in our lunch break in the year 3025, take in some sense, a time traveling visit and get to see events live. That's what time travel means. Time travel is the ultimate obstruction of privacy. It is the obstruction of sacredness too, but if the time travel can happen, the system admin has willed it forth. Because it's pretty much, I'm saying like, yo, it's ignorance if we think we're just the point of life, because there's so many different points to life. There's so many different ways moments can have meaning. Your problem is not, is it true or false? What are you, a robot 0101? Your problem as a soul in this world is that you don't know what to do with the unknown. Do you know? Because the moment you actually discover the true, how unknown this world has been from the beginning, it's as if if they're like Mr. Within, how would I say it? If you want to know what my alter ego, this Iron Man suit of myself that I sometimes wear, Mr. Within, it's a symbol. It's not a person. It's saying something within you is accessing everything that is outside of you, without you. Life is not just you. Knowledge is introduced. Do you know what it is? Like, this is what reality is. Okay, I want you to imagine there's a huge tent that 8 billion people, or let's say all the future young generations, are in. Imagine there's like the future okay, that's too deep. I'll say it this way. Imagine there's a bunch of people, they open their eyes, okay, and they're inside a gigantic tent, okay? And they all wonder about why they're inside this tent. Guys, inspiration has hit me. I gotta write something down. Hold on. Has found me. I'm so sorry, guys. I just gotta write this down. All right, guys. All right. Guys, I was apologizing in case people were time sensitive. But, you know, we got to keep culture alive somehow, you know. I'm still, you know, it's like, yeah, we got to search for truth and meaning, but it doesn't mean we can't, you know, still have class, you know what I mean? Like, that's the luxury of civilization. It's gentler, so its intelligence has way more expression outputs, you know, like points of expression. To be honest, what they didn't teach you is that nobody can teach you how you're being you. You have to figure it out. That's it, because you're starting inside your own self-simulated meaning. And people go to these watch these yogis in the Himalayas, and they, like, they go to these sages, and they're like, oh, why sage? What is enlightenment? And the enlightenment and sage is like, yo, man, cut the crap. You know what I mean? Excuse my language. The enlightened sage is like, buddy, beyond language, there's nothing. That nothingness is the presence of all reality. That presence of all reality, before it's dual, it is the whole moment. So the whole moment is truth. Because the whole moment is truth, everything within it is true to you. And that's how most, like, that's one way of function. Do you understand? But I see it more that at some point on this planet, as a member of the human species, I found the wisdom in understanding why the unseen is called the unseen, why the unknown is called the unknown, because you don't know what's beyond this. So right now it is of concern to me, because I treat this planet, just to, like, give a high five to Buckminster Fuller and Marshall McLuhan, a time traveler's high five, and tell these guys, like, okay, this is spaceship Earth. We need human beings designed for it. All the introverts are going to be the crew members that work inside the spaceship. Imagine. And all the extroverts are working outside of the spaceship. That means extroverts are becoming responsible for the macro meaning, and introverts are being responsible for the micro meaning. And both of them are very advanced classes. Right? They're both advanced paths, because the introverts gave us knowledge. They were like people who cared about writing things down, people who cared about passing down stories. It was as if within this world of, like, all this physical stuff going in accordance to certain physical constants and laws, right? Like a certain specific looping context, endlessly expanding context. In actuality, it's like, how lame would it be if you played a video game and you just stared at one part of the video game and you didn't explore the rest of the map? This perception defeats the view of self-defeat. That means suicide never made sense when you never knew who you really were. So the human consciousness has to be like, okay, nobody knows. Everybody's freaking out. We are all telling ourselves this simulated story of, yeah, man, I'm a fictional idea, and yeah, you're a fictional idea, and we're going to share ideas right now. Da 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 da. And so this is what we call, like, communication on Earth. But in regards to attaining advanced communication, one has to attain advanced awareness. Advanced awareness, the conclusion beyond the ego, is that it is the mercy of God. That means let me tell you this. Everything, whoever you are, everything that is happening to you, it is happening to you not because of all the beliefs you have on yourself. It's happening because you're not acknowledging everything in the moment. How much suffering has there been because we haven't seen far enough? Guys, what do you call it? Just give me a second. I'm trying to tell you, the great path of civilization is beyond the ideas that we have lived as. I am trying to tell you, to be honest, I mean, like, what can I say? Sometimes I don't even feel like a lecture. I feel like I'm like this attention in a world that's just being like, why is all of this here? Why am I here? Why are they all here? Why is this world, how can this world even be here at all? And if it can be here, what is actually here? And if what is actually here is beyond the limitations of the human species' access, what is the protocol then? Because if we want to 100% understand the unknown, the only way you can understand the unknown, if you realize the unknown self. But not every person on this planet needs to realize the unknown self. But at some point, it's unavoidable as well. Actually, I'm encouraging you to notice the unknown. We've reached that point where I can't be like, okay, the past gave advice in accordance to what they could see, how far they could see. Every moment of your life, whoever you are that's alive right now, you are carrying the responsibility of how far the human species has evolved. And for me, because the word evolution became tainted through a contextual physical fixation, what can I say? God knows better. That means I'm not like, it's like I'm an employee, you're an employee. There's managers that we can't see. Do you understand? And, or let's say there's supervisors and there's managers, you know. And I don't want to go over a whole org chart here, but I'm like, what if somebody in the chat section said ignorance is bliss, but not all bliss is ignorance? I'm trying to tell you, what if duality is ignorance? What if beyond duality there is no chaos was right or order was right? The realm responded to a higher power. Please, I don't know who you are listening to this. The moment I say the word higher power, it means whatever power you think you have, imagine there's levels above. And imagine you are climbing this mountain towards the most advanced state of being. That's how I'm living my life. That's my soul's life pretty much. That means, what's my body here to do? You know, survive. What is my mind here to do? Purpose, which tends to be creation. What is my soul here to do? To remember the original power. And once you remember that you are not God, but you were created by the system admin, and the human, even in the Holy Quran, it mentions that we are in some sense an ambassador of the higher realm. We are that agency that we are that agency force. That means I don't know what every person's individual soul is, but I can tell how the expression of these souls collectively has had an output. That means I can see how soul has decided human manifestation. Do you understand? Or let me say it this way. I want you to imagine that not only, you imagine every person's inside a bubble, and then imagine civilization itself or society is its own bubble, gigantic bubble, okay? All human civilization is another bubble, right? So you're a human, that's like one bubble, and then there's another bubble around that bigger one, human civilization, and there's a bigger, let's say, bubble around that, and that one's in some sense the unknown. And in some sense, beyond the unknown, you reach a point where if it's something that you create, you can't trust because you know it's from you. So in the search for a higher power, that means they're like, yo man, what happened when you went looking for truth? And it's like, you know, I realized truth is in actuality so beyond, so dehumanized, because its ability is beyond the human, and how human beings have found a comfort with reality only through the human ideology. That means we have been worshiping the human idea and telling this human story. And the word human is one of the most important words, not just in the English language, but it is pointing to the most important value. You see, at some point, it's not like, yo man, how should I think about life? No. Just pause. It's about what is the furthest reaches of my awareness as a being present now at all. It's as if, like, okay, the human being doesn't roar like a lion, but an inner vision in some sense brings forth a will of its own. You think moments only have a value to humanity. There is so much beyond, and humans know this. But we keep playing our human game, and we have to. That means we are technically behaving semi like an advanced civilization, but it's still shaky, and it's like, you gotta understand, 2025, it doesn't matter who owns the most advanced technology. The world was not as advanced as we could envision it. We could imagine in our inner realms, perceive, witness future probabilities to reality. You can imagine flying cars, see them in films, and in some sense even read about them, and yet they don't exist. Nobody can go and buy a flying car yet. So what does that mean? There is a further reality. It's like maybe 1 year ahead is like being envisioned by the species, and the inventors are those who are so aware beyond their own life somehow. That means they're like, yo man, as a strategic soul, how should we deal with suffering, pain, and death? Death is actually different way I gotta speak about it, but you see, to me, I'm like, okay, intelligent interaction levels. From the moment I open my eyes, instead of me giving everything meaning, I'm gonna look at the moment in front of my eyes and be like, let me just notice what moves at all from it, the stillness of my consideration of it. We are seeking advancement here. Do you know what advancement means? Advancement means you can put that word in front of everything and you are suddenly becoming responsible for the future. That's what they don't teach. They're like, yo man, why are the children of the modern age lazy? And in some sense, the reason they are is because they are living more as minds than bodies. Even engaging technology requires such use of the mind that I'm telling you, the soul of man, in some sense, is the essence of man. And I'm that person making this argument. Legit, I'm saying, like, how do I explain it? Legit, I'm telling you, it's like, let me change the song. Guys, how's the lecture coming across so far? Let me know. Okay, somebody. Okay, next level question. I don't know if this is a blessed moment right now or not. I've seen it. Okay, so whoever you are, like, I'd like you, I don't know, like, join the Discord server or something. But you've asked the question that anybody by the design, whoever just reaches that idea, who cares, that means anyone who sincerely cares to want to actually know what an advanced life, an advanced civilization, an advanced state of being would be, then in some sense, what about your normal life? You still function and play your role, but in actuality, the deeper life is being lived as well. That means there were people who, in some sense, there was like this person, I don't know, he was like meditating in a temple or something, right? And they're like, who are you? And the guy's like, I'm the professor of Caltech or something. I'm the dean of like Caltech or something. I don't know. It's probably not true, but I'm telling you, it's like the guy was the most like big. He's like, I'm a Nobel Prize winner, yo, and I've come with these Tibetan monks, and I'm sitting down because the life I was living wasn't satisfactory, and I've slowed things down. Now I'm wondering, what does it all mean? And I've realized it's based on how far I'm aware of, and then the purpose that arises. Do you understand? That means, how do graceful leaders, kings, emperor archetypes, conqueror archetypes, how do they lead? Graceful. I'm saying, imagine the emperor archetype, but a graceful one. That means it's defined by its grace. And grace means that you honor the presence of reality as if the most advanced power is watching you right now. So I'm not claiming I'm the most advanced being, but I am claiming that the original power, the original, what the original power to the simulation, if like I have understood it to such a degree where I could poetically explain it, but even that's unnecessary. I'm telling you, I asked myself this question: how come when I sleep, oh my god, guys, this is where, if people ask, like, does this podcaster talk too much? The answer is, he goes into a state called hyper talking. You know? Because to be honest, guys, it's all about the vision. That means, what's the purpose of language? It's to point to reality. Why is language pointing to reality? Language is another way that the momentary intelligence can be reflected. That means, I'm telling you, it's like a strategy that if a simulated being, so okay, let's say we entered this video game and we're a simulated being, okay? And this simulated being completely experiences the simulated world, feels it, experiences, even has existential roles and purpose, and matters to attend to, for civilization, and okay, I gotta answer your question though. As soon as I find what I'm looking for, hold on. So, a beautiful question has been asked, an advanced question. That means a person's like, all right, man, I've lived like thousands of days on this, like countless days on this planet. Do you know? It's like, okay, what is beyond this, and what does that actually mean? What does the beyond mean? What does marching with time towards the beyond mean? I don't know how many human beings have shared that sort of positioning, but I'm telling you that language is an instrument. It's a tool. It's the idea of you, the backstory of you, your ego, and the story you tell yourself of who you are. Okay, this is a part of your life. It's not all of your life. Because if we truly look at it, you realize it starts from being raised as a child in a very peaceful, loving world, and then you discover, whether you like it or not, the nature of a reality where the savageness that was in the jungles still lingers in man's mind. And human beings on earth have not aligned to an advanced, greater vision, right? And in some sense, if I was alive back in the day, so imagine, like, this is like, imagine if I was alive in medieval times, and imagine I was the son of a blacksmith, you know? or some designer, probably a blacksmith. That's the best. And in some sense, son of a blacksmith. Anyways, I'm trying to say, if I wanted to advance civilization in medieval times, I would in some sense go ask all the kings that are alive there questions. Do you know? And to be honest, for me, if they're like, what's a fun game to play on Earth? Because I wouldn't say I'm having fun all the time. I sometimes feel I'm just staring at a massive unknown changing simulation, and I'm being like, okay, I understand my self-simulated meaning is like beyond how far I see it. There's so many different ways to look at the world. The challenge is not like pick one view out of infinite views. You know, it's a matter of being like, okay, what's the purpose of a storyline? This is something the youth don't need to really care about now and even understand, but really it starts off graceful, and then you notice the deterioration of character as moments arise where one's character in existence is tested. So to me, when I started looking at life as if like, let me just be like, okay, what's moving at all? Do you understand? Like, and what does movement mean? That means they've trained us like in school. They're like, all right, man, these kids don't know anything, right? We'll just feed them nouns like you know, like how they feed like, you know, animal food to like, you know, to a stable or something. Like that's the public educational system. It's like, all right, here's a bunch of geometry of conception, child, you know, and then you're gonna go in the future and be like, what? They're stealing your creativity by giving an opinion on a reality you haven't experienced yet, you know, for the sake of public. Do you understand? It's ridiculous. The true. If you ask, okay, somebody asked. Okay, I got it. Somebody asked, what does an advanced civilization look like? I'll tell you. I'll tell you what a school in an advanced civilization would look like. Okay? You go to school, imagine, whatever you type of vision you want to fathom here, okay? You go to school, and there is no such thing as teachers, and there's no such thing as, in some sense, like students. This concept has become obsolete, imagine. Right? I'm giving you an example. I'm trying to explain to you what an advanced civilization, a school in an advanced, a public school in an advanced civilization would look like. There is no such thing as teacher and students. There's a ranking system. The ranking system is like you start from rank 1, that's grade 1. And then it doesn't just go up to 12 and become a different system. It becomes one global ranking system. Do you understand? And it becomes like different servers. That means there's this game called League of Legends, and I was like the structure, not the game itself or the content of it, right? But the way the geometry of it has been positioned in regards to how there's a ranking system and access to higher realities. That means in the future, the curriculum is freedom. Do you understand? That means this in an advanced civilization, you're like, okay, do I have homework? They'll be like, what is this ancient concept you speak of? They'll just be like, listen, everybody has a ranking system. So for example, you have teachers which are on a different server of the educational system in an advanced civilization, which means that teachers have a ranking system. They have like 2 medals. You have like 1 medal with your rank. And anytime you enter an educational facility globally, that ranking system would be visible. So everybody will know everybody's rank all the time, and it's not something that's being forced upon the person. They can, in some sense, make it private, but in some sense, the purpose of it is that if you have like this professor who has contributed to, in some sense, knowledge and academia, do you know what I mean? One of those Noam Chomsky archetype kind of people. Do you know what I mean? One of those like great like scholar archetype people, and they're living these lives in the shadows, grading papers no one will ever see. Do you know? They're like, yo, the teacher gave me an A plus on wasting paper, and what could have been a discussion, what became in some sense like what could have been a conversation, became in some sense like I had to hand paper to you, and you had to show people you had paper. In the future, the educational system, there's an endless rank. So if you're a professor and you're like, man, I don't like capitalism, and in some sense I live my life in the halls of the most advanced educational facilities. Do you know? Because that's really where senior citizens should be getting access to the most advanced technology on earth. That's my opinion. That means, do you know what I mean? That means they're like, all right, guys, you know, when there's a senior citizen in the moment, like the whole army has to, in some sense, you know, there's something about honor, meaning that we don't enforce our ego. We watch the presence of the moment, and as it happens, I don't know how to say it. It's kind of like the expression of meaning. So it's vision oriented and it's purpose oriented. The mind, seldom is this said, but works in accordance to
I feel lost.
in honor of the most advanced original power of reality and the one and only system admin, that if you even could get into the proximity of, that means it's like a simulated being can't be true, can't act as like the ultimate truth. So what's the best thing a simulated being can do? Strangely, the word faith suddenly in the background suddenly comes into the front stage. Faith in what? In vision. That means every person I see, I'm like, yo, man, like, how do I process like what they're doing? And to me, I'm like, all right, they're a human being on this planet. They're experiencing their own existence for the first time in every moment they're conscious. Do you know what I mean? Like, I understand what it means to be human. I understand the system. The issue is the system is not updating, and civilization is becoming too lazy to care to even notice how it's not updating. You know what I mean? Like that's like ridiculous. Do you know? And I'm telling you, I see such advanced ways that reality can happen. Like when the child goes to school, it's inside legit a virtual reality. And children have to go through physical obstacle courses, like Ninja Warrior kind of like simplified, do you know, to get to their classrooms. And they're like, yo, man, how come all the students in this school are incredibly healthy? Because every day they had to go through a playful obstacle course to get to their classroom. You know, everybody, like a school where every student could do parkour would be incredible. Like, I think that would be very advanced. Like that's like an advanced school. Do you know? It's like all our students get into the most advanced universities, and they also do the most advanced physical movements known to mankind. You know, for me, you guys don't understand. My conscience is legit silliness. It's like, what do I do with a reality that is so beyond, its depth is so beyond? That means I'm like, okay, let me just act like for a second, as if like, it doesn't matter that I've noticed everything we know. is happening in the presence of something that is much vaster and actually unknown. And so really the greatest task of man, which I would say this is the legend of, in some sense in my science fiction I have something, legend of the rebels, okay, of epistemic entropy, or revolutions of epistemic entropy. I can see even the idea that way. Epistemic entropy means, guys, that at some point, just like the universe kind of like, finishes, completes, its process. That's the whole point of life, really. You're here processing information, processing this reality, your whole life wondering about what is the meaning of life, living in a sort of subjective simulated landscape. You question faith, you question divinity, but you have all those qualities when it comes to the society that just by merely trusting the context, you accept all concepts. Really, to administer an advanced civilization, to speak of it as someone who has wondered what is the most advanced way that the moment can happen constantly, that means they're like, yo man, I don't know if I can call it OCD, I can call it an obsession, or I can call it in some sense a sort of calling by the divine, towards destiny. At some point you just look at your life and you're like, all right, we acknowledge the position of the moment, the presence of attention, and how so many processes in the moment, like you have no clue how the blood cells in your body are moving, okay? And yet, you're satisfied with just being able to move your hands and dance. Do you know what I mean? That means there is so much of reality that is far beyond what we have in some sense been conditioned in, that I'm telling you, there was this Japanese anime show called The Promised Neverland. That is, to be honest, like something they should teach in schools. Like any literature professor who teaches that narrative, or the moral of that narrative to any student, you have done a great service for mankind. Because let me tell you, there was a poet by the name of Rumi, and he has this quote where he says, I read this online, and the quote says, before death takes all that is given, give away all that there is to give. That's how far he could see. But for me, how far I can see is that it's beyond good and bad. It's beyond the infinite possibility of the poetry of how chaos and order interact. And at some point, I think it's how, it's very hard to explain, but it's like linguistically, it's how the soul finds itself. So what does that mean? That means if your whole life you'd been living in regards to good, evil, right, wrong, light, darkness, red lightsaber, blue, green lightsaber, or let's say actually blue lightsaber. No, I mean Earth is pretty green, So with the blue and it's the battle against like fire, the endless, entropy of the cosmos from a secular perspective. Darkness is chaos. Chaos doesn't care about what it destroys, but in some sense, order is destined to care for its creation. That means theologically, for me, you don't understand. If somebody asks me, like, hey, have you understood the Holy Quran? I would say it's like you're asking me if they put the most advanced positioning of conception you've ever seen beyond what is seen. I can tell you holy books are that which only if you are pure you access. And human beings, they oscillate in regards to the decisions they make. I'm just telling you, my reality shifted from good and evil okay, to for a second forget that my body is simulated here for some time. Every day I wake up, I'm like, all right, another day. I'm simulating meaning again to the moment, and the moment really finds its meaning in accordance to the purpose you have set for the day. Do you know? And that purpose is ultimately based on how far your awareness is. Do you understand? In an advanced civilization right now, you know why you're not in an advanced civilization right now? Because the advanced civilization doesn't even care for what it has. It's just getting tax from people. And that's just even ridiculous when money can, in an abstract way, they're like, wait a minute, do you know? Suddenly, psychologists, after having countless discussions with philosophers, were like, all right, guys, just create infinite money. Okay? Do you know, let us just imagine that abstraction, not just be limited to just how much of a paper exists or how much of a unit exists, but rather in some sense what is beyond what is the true value of us being here, and why is it so important how you go through this journey. That means, is it the coward's path to be like, yo man, it doesn't matter what consequence my actions have because I'm gonna die. And when I die, there's nothing. And when there's nothing, there's nothing. Guys, when I said that thing about like there's no such thing as teacher and students, because guys, like if I was a professor of any, like if I had any audience, I would look at them and be like, guys, we're all explorers in an unknown world. There's gonna be a sort of kind of like endless till the end of time as far as numbers can go, ranking system to the educational system. That means a 99-year-old professor, the value of its contribution would be a rank. Do you know what I mean? And it would be like the rarity and the true honor would arise in the educational system. And it like do you understand? That means it's honorless now. The way that teachers and students have a relationship, it's honorless. Do you know what I mean? Because children are raised in different environments, but school is raising them in an environment where you can choose. Like imagine, guys, like for example, you know, for somebody who smoked cigarettes, imagine civilization was so advanced, there were cigarettes that you could smoke that would heal you. The opposite of what it does. Do you know? Imagine. So for me, when I look at life, I'm like, what's the purpose of having a body in a physical world? And what's the purpose of not being alone in reality? When there's 8 billion other human beings here, then there must be a great 8 billion human advance event to occur. You understand? And so there comes like the true urge of advancement. You know, for me, this has been my soul's original. If anybody's like, yo, you're a human being here, how deeply have you seen this life? I'll be like, at first I thought the idea of me owns my soul. That means I thought the egoic reality was superior to any notion to me. Do you know that? But when I realized the world doesn't know what it's doing, because the world is not, in some sense, does not have the organizational capacity. How do I say it? Civilization is not as advanced as the human mind is currently, and this is causing suffering for human beings. I don't know what else to say. You know, like if I they're like, Mr. Within, if you had a chance to go in front of the UN and say something, you know, in front of all human beings, like 8 billion human beings would hear it, you know? I would say, guys, can we acknowledge, like, can everybody just acknowledge, you know, how we didn't create any of this, and the world has too specific of geometry into it and design. And when the design is integrative, that's when it's like intelligent. That means you're not just a part of the moment, you're a part of the moment that can navigate within the moment itself. Everybody's access to their inner realms is based on how far life has truly opened their eyes. The value of you is based on any context, because to be honest, it's like we're living a fictitious and non-fictitious life at the same time. We're living an objective non-fictitious life, and we're living a subjective fictitious life right now. Okay? Which is another way of saying, where is our attention going next? Really, what life has been, I have just followed where my attention is going. And to me, when I wonder about, like, all right, what do I do if reality is a simulation? And you know what a great question somebody could ask me would be, is like, hey man, if reality is a simulation, why should we build an advanced civilization? Because it's an advanced testing zone within a divine surveillance state where everything is being logged. Everything you think that nobody knows except you is being seen by the system administrative force. What does that mean? That means the moment is important. Now, how should a human being conduct itself in this world that it finds itself in? No, let me explain. We are identifying the problem as an objective and ideological simulation simultaneously. I think everybody would agree with me, right? Like right now as I'm speaking, like my body's right here, okay, the world is outside of me, and I'm like, my eyes are moving, I can move my physical body. But if you ask me what else is in the moment, I'll be like, it seems like there's this guiding, directing force. What that means, free will is an ability to fly, and it's as if, how is there even a possibility? For me, free will is a state. That's what I realize. I'm like, man, how bizarre is this reality? That every person I've ever known has been an elemental state, has been an existential state, has been a position in an unknown moment that is vast. And when it has a system administrative force, it means truth is so beyond its creation that if its creation is the simulated in the presence of the original, it becomes its divine command. That means if they're like, what happens when you're close to God, but this God is not ideological, conceptual, it is just a realization that in Islam there's the 99 names of God, and regardless how people interpret it, but the ideas itself are so far superior. For example, God is all-knowing. That means human beings have limitations in how far they can know, because we're a certain type of mechanism. And our brains are a certain state. Like in deep sleep, there's no personality. In dream state, your body's sleeping on the bed, underneath a blanket, right? And in your dream state, you're running, moving, flying, like consciously, like shifting reality or something. And then you wake up and you're like, okay, how can I live a normal life after that dream? For me, the notion of mental health is like I think it's a wrong approach. I think we should look at this world and be like, all right, guys, everything we see that is human is the best that human beings could do so far. Now it is up to all of us who are being the live stream of human history on Earth to just be like, yo, this view of an advanced civilization that Mr. Within is telling you, put the word advance in front of everything and your life will change. That means when I came to give this talk, I was like, okay, what's the most advanced state of the moment? Because is it just helpless despair in a limited world that's just looping the whole time? Or is it more about, okay, what immediate resources are present in my moment? How can I be aware of reality from different positions? What is the nature of meaning? How is every human being looking at life? And it's like they don't see the same thing, but because they physically identify only with reality, it becomes easier to have a realm of communication. That means like atheists are like the backup system of trying to keep reality not drifting too far from physical reality. They're guardians. Atheists are guardians of materialism. They're guardians of manifestation. And theists are guardians of that the original power is prior to even the simulation arising was the original moment. That means being like, wow, what an interesting idea. To, instead of thinking I'm a good person, bad person, be like, wait a minute, for a second, what if I'm a simulated being and there's infinite ways that you can look at reality, so the mind is limited to infinity. And so beyond infinity, beyond, and I should say it this way, beyond the conceptual, the question is ultimately, is something affiliated to us in control of reality, or is it something that is not aware of us? And the true answer is the system admin is not only all merciful and all benevolent, but it's like, I don't want you to think like I'm, yo man, I'm being like, yo, this overlord is like, I'm explaining the attributes of an overlord. Guys, relax. In Islam, it's the only system, or I'm saying system from a modern perspective, like it's the only view, it's the only ideological system, okay, that is like truth is beyond condition. And that it's the original divine command of the Supreme. That means if they're like, what's behind the world? I would say the command of the system admin, because regardless of if I think I'm doing the right thing, or if I think I'm doing the wrong thing, right? And at the end of this life, I'm like, okay, does how I felt I lived count? And they're like, it could be like what's being said in Islam is that God judges you. So we are being judged. That means whatever life we live, its ultimate meaning that decides the fate of that life is not arising from us. It means that human beings, the atheists, have actually slowed progress of human advancement. But they are a backup system. It's a very difficult situation, because from one angle, we have to honor existence, but we have to honor experience, and we have to be able to honor the veil in between. My lectures, you're listening to a human being who already is explaining to you how this veil, right? I'm saying like your life is just happening in regard, like most human beings live lives of dualistic self-obsession. That's it. It's self-obsession. Every moment you're just paying attention to yourself. Am I like, what's occurring? What's the moment? What's the, it's constant. It's like your eyes open, value proposition, and the response to that value is the search for the ultimate value. The ultimate value in Islam is beyond any concept and beyond any context, and it is the original, meaning that a simulated being cannot fathom an administrative level being, because we are only administering one body. This power administers in Islam. There's this beautiful phrase, and I'm a visual learner, but I remember the phrase. It's Alhamdulillah Rabbil Alameen. All praise to the Lord of the worlds. Lord of the worlds, plural. And as a Muslim, for me, it's strange, because before I was consciously like identifying my personality as a Muslim and living in accordance to those value system, I had been in a Muslim universe from the beginning because everything in existence is aware of its creator. In Islam, the unseen again is for unnecessary territory for ego to enter, and in some sense, God knows best how the unseen works, how everything works. But I'm saying that when we look at the value of what we have as human beings, we have to care about, okay, what is our position in the system? That means so many, like what media has done is that capture people in an emotional fog. Right now, if you when I look at the species, I see the youth are making decisions based on their emotions rather than based on actually processing the information of reality and what's actually going on in the moment. Right? So people are living in their own worlds, thinking they're living out. And like just because life means in one way, how do I say it? There's so many ways to look at life that beyond thought, there is no ownership of thought. You see, guys, the dualistic universe, man, how do I say it? It's like I'm trying to tell you, just for a second, forget everything anybody has said and just look at this world, wonder about it, and you're going to realize like human beings use some sort of knowledge system. They use some sort of knowledge system. The song's lionizing the moment a little too much. Alright, let's go with this. Anyways, guys, I'm gonna keep going. So ultimately, it's about the relationship and the difference between a young human being and, let's say, an old human being is in some sense that one has become aware of what patterns of reality there is. You know, when there's so many chess grandmasters, they brought up this question, like, are these guys all geniuses? These chess grandmasters? And they were like, in some sense, no, they just had such next level pattern recognition that when they looked at the chessboard, they saw a film of what was happening on the chessboard before it happened. So, pattern recognition, there's like that aspect to reality. Okay, and honestly, I'm trying to tell you, like, I'm just saying everything the human species knows, its context is the unknown. The unknown is not something we can know, it's just part of the moment. The unknown is beyond duality. It's more unknown than form. So to me, my life as a religious person, if people are like, yo man, why do you believe in this higher power? Why do you believe in God? I'll be like, because there is nothing there. Like, if there was an advanced civilization, actually, I need to reconsider this actually in all my thoughts, but like, an advanced civilization realizes that it can advance as far as the individuals in that advanced civilization are advanced. Pattern recognition is there, but a sort of visionary stepping into uncharted territories. Like, for me, I think deep down human beings, like, if you wanted to know really what would be happening in advanced civilization, human beings would be honored by the advanced civilization. Anytime a child is born, imagine an advanced civilization that has surpassed a financial system. Like, I don't Honestly, I'm a little too exhausted to kind of tell you what the financial system of an advanced civilization would be, but it would be, in some sense, there would be no such thing as poverty. There would just be decisions, and smarter decisions and smarter decisions and smarter decisions, and at some point ignorance. Where was it? In honor of the moment we are alive. There's so many ways reality goes and happens, and as much as there's been days where I felt my limitlessness and my joy, and if they're like, man, and this is me, like, just like, honestly, me, if they ask me, like, what's the greatest joy I've experienced, would be that moment where I felt I was in the presence of the system admin. That I truly felt an awareness that I am not just in an empty, endless, like, unknown pitch black, like everything's hovering in the middle of it kind of reality. I'm actually in the presence of the higher power, and the world is the test. And so it's not about just like, yo, man, you survived in the world alone and you lived a life nobody got to know, and then at the end of it, your ancestors clapped for you. No. We have to activate them. Like, pretty much I'm saying, like, there is no good or bad person anymore. There is no smart or stupid person anymore. There's just the most advanced activated human beings, and there's those who are still inactive. There's no longer fools in an advanced civilization. We're all explorers, and deep down there is no judgment. Why? Because it's unknown. Because what is looking through your eyes, which is in some sense flying through, between the pillars of so many different structures of meaning, at some point, like, I'm a human being who's lived like around 12,000 days on this planet. 12,000 days I've woken up, I'm like, another new day? Okay, nice. Another new day. Wait a minute, the novelty is too repetitive. And I realized the flaw in duality, that there's always another side to the coin. And so to surpass a dualistic reality, one has to realize the ego is trying to own the dualistic reality, and it never can. For the true administration of events surpasses how just human beings have a value. That means, let's say I go give a talk in front of like millions of people, and then their reaction to me is not just their reaction, it is also like, all right, system admin, what has my soul deserved? What sort of moment does it deserve? And if I am in the presence of an original being in my simulated position, the realization that there is an original power is the ultimate confirmation that fear dissolves upon the realization that whatever life you live, if you enter the system and don't update it before you leave, you failed everything, including yourself. That's what it means to be responsible for a future. That means they're like, yo, do you know, why is Mr. Within building an advanced civilization? And imagine they're like, yo, he wants to give the greatest gift to his, like, if he ever makes it to have a grandchild. Do you know? It's like gifting an advanced reality. Do you understand? In reality right now, if somebody was like, yo, man, if you were a commander of, like, how human beings are, how human consciousness is organizing in reality, I would say reality is fine. The only thing it's missing is sectors. That means children should be raised in a sector that is different than modern, like, reality. Do you know what I mean? Because the parent can't be there with the child to teach the child all the time, and it's not even good for the parent to, like, solve the problems of the child, right? So the child has to kind of have this kind of like pushed into the unknown and like find yourself mode. I am experiencing a desert level thirst, and it's snowing outside right now. And that's, what an evening of a podcaster's life is. For me, it's honestly like, I just have to be like, okay, The way at least my intelligence works, I'm sure there's always a more I'm this person where my view, like honestly, like my ultimate view is that every moment has a genius angle, and God's mercy is to allow you to access that genius view. That means there is no genius person. It's more like a genius moment was discovered. Maybe they found this genius moment. Something unlocked out of the context of reality they had looping for so long. You see, for me, I was like, honestly, I surpassed it. Like, I'm not, this is me like probably like a month ago, where I was in a kind of state where I was like, is it better to just, live in a comfortable, self-simulated, meaningful world, bubble of a world? Or is there a deeper calling within me that if we can envision more advanced ways that civilization can happen, it means it exists as a possibility. It means they're like, what kind of advantage can you find if you were given a unadvanced civilization? You'd be like, okay, it can use the contrast. It has an ability to see what the most advanced civilization is and then wonder about how its free will wonders. Anyways, folks, I gotta now go towards the title. The title is very fascinating for this episode, and when that sentence was formed in my mind, like I could envision that sentence, I was like, I have to, like that's the name of the lecture. Like that's how I name my lectures, by the way, guys. I just know that sentence has something about it that's like calling me to go and see what that universe is. For me, I reached this hilarious conclusion, and people are like, what kind of philosophical? I have philosophical views. I'm not a philosopher, just to let everybody know. The closest thing externally in my expression has been that of a designer. That means a being that has opened its eyes and has realized, this is what I was trying to say earlier, actually. I think one thing, that quality, again, I have is, it's called Alam al-Mithal. It's called Plato's World of Forms. And it's like this, I don't want to say it's a dimension, but it's this state of how reality is just geometrically present in the divine. Seeing Plato's World of Forms is not like you go into another dimension, whoa, is everything happening there? No. Seeing Plato's form is realizing everything, like you see in front of you a tree, is that just a tree? And then when you zoom in, you realize, no, it's a geometrical occupant in your awareness. So I don't know how or why, or geometry is like, like, I guess in old school terms, where in an illuminationist theory, this is just a theory, because I don't know, I think the Holy Quran is an ultimate answer. That means when they said, is Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, sallallahu alaihi wasallam, if Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, was the last prophet and was the seal of prophets and was the final brick in the house of prophecy. And many people are like, why does that mean there's not going to be prophets in the future? And the answer is, like, first of all, ask, does there need to be any more? That means it's as if it's hilarious. People are such culturally brainwashed that they don't realize it's fiction games. And just we're treating objects as only real, but reality's meaning and value is subjectified, and especially through communication. For me, since my childhood, I wouldn't say, I think this is something I would 100% say. It's like a term for it could be like liminal, but a pure liminality, not an impure liminality. That means a pure rare moment, not an impure rare moment. A pure rare moment is that you're living an original life. They're like, what's the advantages of, activating honesty? You access an honest realm. That means you get to see your original life. You can trust yourself. But as Aristotle was like, yo man, that dude who's lying is creating so many different like guys, sometimes I envision like, man, I need to create a Monty Python, but a way advanced version of it, right? Of like the School of Athens. I gotta write this down. Okay, I got it. All right. Sorry, guys. I just had to write something down. When I got my Canadian passport, the lady apologized to me, and I'm like, wow. Just like in Japan, they bow. In Canada, they're apologetic to, in some sense, act humble, to, in some sense, values. They don't know why. And the violin is a beautiful instrument, but 30 minutes of it is up to Bravo, It's like a Bravo moment. They're like, how much opera does that person listen to? If the person's listening to 100 hours of opera, that'd be like, okay, that's a level that's like I can expect that from an extraterrestrial or an advanced AI. You know what I mean? All right. This song I'm playing is called Winter Nights by an artist called One Heart. And it says in brackets, the name of the song is Everything Reminds Me of You. I don't know what it is. It's just a song I downloaded from YouTube, And it's legit snowing outside, but this conversation's, For me, I'm just trying to tell you, a noob of the Earth game just believes that there's something more. Let's say someone who's improved beyond, that's no longer a noob, but still a noob in higher realities. It's like anything that has been overcome can be taught. This song is so deep. I legit feel like the nature of human attention is kept subjective. It's a convenience. Human beings are like these beings that were too afraid to, not too afraid, but they didn't know how to respond to the unknown, and their overreaction to it, whether conscious or unconscious, their unconscious overreaction to it was like created the linguistic simulation, and like our ants, pretty much the earliest human beings were like, we don't know what to tell you about this unknown world, but somebody tell a story. Come on, guys. So who has a good story? Like, that's how civilization's meaning began. It's the effort of the human species, guys. That's it. It's far superior. It's like, yo, man, what ideology are you preaching? I'm like, bro, I'm just saying, the human being. If there's an unknown world, it means our knowledge is limited. If human knowledge is limited, we have to wonder about how many different ways the moment can have value. And religion, that means, what's the difference between a religious person and someone who's not religious? The religious person is constantly in the presence of their greatest value. When there's tragedy, they call upon God. They call upon not some shape or form or something like that. That's still Newbery. That's some sort of Newbery. Do you know what it is? Is that for me, it shifted from like, oh my God, my whole life I thought I was the main character, but what if I'm not? What would that view look like? And I realized so many ways reality happens before I, in some sense, repaint it with my own meaning, in accordance to what past familiar patterns in the brain kind of resemble what I see now. So ultimately, even we can bring the idea of time here, right? That we're beings that are conscious of time. You know, these are two things. This second one, I'm really saying. The first one, this is really something the scholars say. That means it's not from me. They say that what really distinguishes the human species from other species on this planet is that we are aware we will die at some point. The lion doesn't have a calendar to check off how many days it can possibly exist in reality. We have to make important decisions, and therefore, for me, I guess this is the final thing I'll say, actually. I was like, all right, man, even if I take the most egoic approach, the ego cannot ignore its most advanced version. That means the advanced civilization, to me, is such a pure idea, because it is what everyone's doing. Everybody, whether they know it or not, is living for their future self. They're being commanded by their future self. Do you know? And those who don't listen to the commands of their future self, they don't care to have a purpose to life, to have meaning. That means it's like templates, yo. How can I explain it? Do you know, human beings on this planet, they open their eyes, either they're original and creative, or they use templates, and they live into different templates. Carl Jung would call these archetypes, you know? Anyways, guys, seems like there's I don't know, few people listening actually here and engaged. I need to end the talk now. Like, I've reached the end of the talk, but I'm gonna go on the Discord, and the Discord link can be found in, like, I guess the community section of the YouTube channel. And I can, like, you know, chat there for like maybe 15 minutes, something like that. Do you know? So I'm gonna conclude this lecture, and then I'm gonna go on Discord. If anybody likes to join for 15 minutes, I'll just hang out there, you know. Like, I think that's the point of these platforms even existing, you know what I mean? It's like, okay, we have the processing of advanced AI, we have the processing of one soul, we have the processing power of multiple souls. That means the access to so many different ways of views. How far does it all go? And my ultimate conclusion was that, strangely, what seems to be the right action is not the action that is prioritizing my survival, the survival of my objective life and subjective life in just the condition of the world and reality. But it's like, as a Muslim, I am in the presence of the higher power. That means when I began wondering about what is the force that moves me, like if somebody was like, it's strange. It's like you're being the soul, but you cannot know the soul. That means the mechanism, if you choose the method of wanting to know the soul, you cannot know the soul. But if you live in accordance to, let's say, higher awareness principles, right? You begin to realize life strangely shifts, and it's strange because it's kind of like if life was a game, to win in a game, the whole point of the game is positioning. Anybody who's good at positioning is technically a great strategist. That means you're aware of reality, meaning everything shifting. Do you understand? You're so aware. They're like, yo, man, this person is so aware. He's aware of the silence before any sound arises. He's aware of the stillness before any movement arises. He's aware of how the unknown witnessing power force, life force, is in some sense animating as the moment, and how this animated, it's like your eyes have not opened in a random geometrically designed before you were born world. Your eyes have opened in a specific scenario. And it's very important for us to behave in accordance to that specific scenario. That specific scenario is not like everybody has to be cloned into one behavioral, masses. You know what I mean? Like, I don't want to clone, human beings are here to have a relationship. Islam is an ideological system that no one can come and judge you, because nobody can come and act like God, and that's a type of shirk. That's like the biggest sin. You see, the whole point of Islam is that there's a truth beyond any form, so forms are not the edge of the world. So a Muslim is not just conscious of this life, they are conscious of what can happen in the afterlife, and they're realizing whether they're secular and think reality is actually, in quotations, reality machine, right? What you input into it, you get an output, or it's actually has a will that is far beyond man's awareness. You see, because this is the thing I'm saying. I am a type of strategist soul in human history. If the history books remember me, they have been kind. They have been too kind. But in actuality, what I am really looking for is that I cannot know how advanced I am. So the ego wants myself to be advanced. I can't know how advanced I am if I'm the only advanced person in the world. So the only way I could truly know how advanced I am, if I advance everybody and we advance the whole system, and in the moment where there's the alignment of all the most advanced states, and the advanced and what is an advanced state for the soul? It's proximity to the original power. That means right now, what powers you, yes, the food you eat, but also this character in the story of your life you are and you tell, right? So right now we're living as characters in a story, right? Like, we all acknowledge this. Now, what happens after we become conscious of this? We realize that there's, strangely, just like phones have a factory reset, to notice the unknown is a type of factory reset of ideological identity. That means communication is like this film that's happening, in which this unknown viewing force, awareness, witnessing power is, I'm not, by the way, guys, in no way I'm saying we are God. God is beyond anything similar. That means if you identify with the body, you're not God. If you think the whole moment is God, you cannot know that. That means even if you knew that, even if you believed that was true, being like a cell in the body of a divine being, it would be like, or being a thought in the mind of a divine being, like it still doesn't matter. It's all about, you are a simulated being. The body's simulated here for some time. There's also the elements in regards to how one, like at least in my life, I was born in, I think, with an awareness to Alam al-Mithal, Plato's world of forms, which means I realized before anything was good or bad, it was just geometry in the moment. And this geometry was basking in an unknown context. And it is known in accordance to behavior and decision. You know why they say a person's decisions are important? Because there being no human being like them has ever existed to do such a thing that influences the public server, which means in front of your eyes it's a public external server, in front behind your eyes it's a private internal server. If you can communicate it, that's like poetry, it seems. So it's to seek the most advanced. Okay, so if you think you're a body, good job. Just wonder about what the most advanced body, human body relationship with the cosmos and everything would be. Right now, an advanced civilized. Let me tell you what it's gonna feel like. This is more like me, running further ahead of this moment and wondering about in the future how will civilization, even though I can't probably imagine it and be alive when this moment happens, but when that true moment where civilization reaches an advancement, where if its efficient decisions are above 90%, okay, even above 51 is like the immediate, it's the beginning of the progress. But it's as if at some point the awareness to the moment has no owner, but if it chooses to treat itself as an owner, it becomes responsible for the context of reality. If you become responsible for the context of reality, you become an introvert, and you become in some sense somebody who rather, it's like a comfortable moment, a comfortable looping moment was more interesting in actuality than the far superior domains of how far human advancement can go, how far human attention can go. Behind our eyes, so many different moments simultaneously can in some sense converge. Like what that means is I can see something now in front of my eyes, remember something that it reminds me of the past, go back and realize that I can never have that same view of the memory of the past. It's like memory of the past plus how I felt when I remembered it. Anyways, thank you for listening. We are all marching with time towards the beyond. The beyond is a symbol that we find we find the notion of the idea, just the concept of the beyond, in the same domain as God is inconceivable. It's like beyond the range of electromagnetic spectrum of reality. Reality would be on in some sense unbelievable, By the way, guys, if you've listened to this lecture, like, you have to leave a comment, like, about like really how it came across. Maybe just whatever that comes to you, and do it right after you listen to this lecture while you're, I don't know, your attention's here. Anyways, what can I say? There's something more I want to say about, I don't know, I feel like I have to say this before I end the lecture. Why I chose marching with time towards the beyond, it's that idea exists for a being that is conscious that human evolution on a psychological scale has been in some sense functioning in accordance to responsibility. That means it's like not only you're an unknown force, but how is this unknown force navigating, managing reality? The ancients pointed that if you start from stillness and silence and then become conscious of reality, that's like a path. But for me, there is no protocol. Truth is present. That means it's like, you know what it is? It's like, imagine there's this is an incomparable metaphor. God cannot be humanized in any way, and the archetype of, for example, the idea of a king is still humanized. God is unimaginable. Unimaginable means you can't even know it if you wanted to. Somebody in the chat section says advanced civilization will come from the inherent vision. My phone's upside down. From the inherent vision within each and every piece of the puzzle. Yeah, I mean, we all have a role here. You know, we could have all been, the system admin could have created us all in our own worlds. There's a reason we're all here. Now I'm saying, like, we need to become responsible, because what maturity is not like, yo, man, you reached adulthood and that's the end. No, it's the sophistication of purpose and how purpose activates responsibility. Responsibility activates discipline. Ultimately, it's with purpose, how far you want to envision, how far you want to go. For me, for me, I'm always fascinated by beautiful eyes, because the most beautiful eyes have nothing to do with color. They have to do with how far you as a soul saw what this actually was and realized it has an admin. You didn't create the world, you find yourself in a world. And the human system must immediately unite with the realization that we are in the presence of the higher power. Do you understand? Like a drill sergeant entered a room and everybody's like suddenly saluting, or a king entered the hall and everybody in some sense did something. You know, so on some level I'm trying to tell you that the attention of man, how far it really goes, has to do to the awareness of reality, but the awareness of reality has to do with your free will of choice. Your free will of choice is kind of like the Iron Man suit of all the different ways you've lived so far, and the ways you've kind of routinized, or routinized, or in some sense kind of like habitualized or familiarized. It's as if there's something about life that when you're given what you're searching for, the urge to search doesn't go away. Because the nature of man, in actuality, like they could bring all the Nobel Prize winners, all the most geniuses on earth, and they'll all look at me and be like, Mr. Within, what are you saying? We're human beings. We're all human beings. And I'll be like, guys, are we human beings if our state of consciousness alters? So the question of what we actually are is deeper. We need a global council of, we need, I gave a lecture on this. We need a United Species Council, but we also need, the council of the most advanced. To me, advancement is the power. That's what I'm trying to tell you. That means, as from my simplistic childhood mind, that I lived in the moment, but anytime something went beyond my conditional control, I would call to the system admin. That's what it's like to be raised as a Muslim. You call upon the higher power when the lower reality in some sense is beyond your capability. And the higher power is the divine command of the moment. And so what is the greatest blessing? How far you saw it all. We're marching in this world with time right beside us. In other words, everything that has happened so far and will happen and is happening. And we're being like, all right, in the middle of this advanced ability of the human mind to fathom a context trio to time. They're like, guys, what time it is? It's like, well, what do you want to know? Time in the past, time in the future, time in the present? As if like philosophers have become like bartenders. That's the wrong path. Philosophers have become bartenders in the sense of like ideas, not drinks. A beautiful prayer that I heard was God, oh, the most advanced power of reality, forgive all of us for all the sins that we consciously have done so far and all the sins we've unconsciously done so far. And guide us to the most advanced state that you believe we deserve. And then your honor is based on activating the greatness of all that is in your domain of awareness. All that is in your awareness is where meaning can be applied to reality. Consciousness is kind of like, it's like the whole moment realizing what's within it, but the first person perspective of this video game is starting like a first person shooter game, right? So it's starting from like your eyesight position, you know? Anyways, thank you for listening, and God knows best. In the name of God, the most benevolent, the most merciful. For the beyond is as everything in existence that remembers its original creator. God is a majesty beyond human fathoming. Just honor the idea as if it's the ultimate archetype, because it's beyond any form, condition, shape. It's pretty much saying the most advanced being. Imagine, like Einstein said, as you accelerate towards the speed of light, right? Time goes still, which means reality doesn't change. Time stops and reality doesn't change. Therefore, there is no individualistic self. It's like life has become. It's like the last photo of consciousness kind of vibe. And then the deeper dimensions of consciousness are truly realized. You're far more advanced than you've ever known, and at some point a person has to just look at life, and they call this the eagle vision method, but it's kind of like this old school kind of scholar philosophy thing, right? And they're like, okay guys, let's learn from the eagle. The eagle can land on a branch of knowledge, a branch of an idea, just its whole life be on a branch, or it can fly into the sky and in some sense have faith in the attributeless truth and see the whole forest at once, and then realize God's mercy is there. The person's like, God, give me blessings. And it's like God's like, the blessings are right there. You don't see it. It's like, God, give me a greatness. It's like the greatness is right there. You don't see it. God, give me advancement. It's like the advancement is there. You don't see it. And at some point, it's as if the system admin was so wise, knew what was within the hearts of all of its creation. And the original selves of all of its creations knew who it was instantly. That's how you know it's a system admin. And it's not a person, guys. It's beyond any form or shape. That means if a shimmering white light being, just appears, glowing light being appears in front of me, right? A being made of light, right? And it's like, it helps me out, and at the end of it I'm like, who are you? And the being's like, I'm God. I'll be like, no, you're not. Nothing in this realm, in the human context, reality is about, let's say, living the most advanced life. In the divine context is to not attribute any equivalent to the power that is beyond the world, that administers the world. And that power is aware of everything. We think we are free, we're in the presence of the ultimate, and it's beyond the notion of the dualistic of freedom, or in some sense like, or its absence. On some level, we look at reality, and I realize the greatest argument is the advanced civilization, but the greatest power that can guide the advanced civilization is God's mercy. And so it's as if it's up to God's mercy to, in some sense, usher the advanced civilization, or in some sense, this lecture becomes a tale forgotten. Do you know? But how far can legends truly live on? Right now, they call it ethos. In some sense, I think of it as, I don't know if this is the accurate definition of it, But I think I don't know if this is the accurate view. I don't know if this is pathos or ethos, but it's pretty much based on, it's like the emotional ruling geometry of an era. I don't know how to explain it. Anyways, folks, thank you for listening. And may God forgive me if I have made mistakes. The intention was the advancement of all beings in the presence of the most advanced. Theologically, we realize that God, I'm repeating myself here, but this point is so important. We gotta endlessly, like an artifact in a museum or something, like look at it, right? Not be convinced by our simple views or one view. That means archaeologists can be incredible chess players. Detectives can be incredible chess players. Gardeners can be incredible chess players. We have reached a point that so much of media and content is simulated. Human beings want to see the rawness of the soul, beyond ignorance and illusion. The clarity of the most advanced effort. Thank you for listening. In the name of God, the most benevolent, the most merciful. And through the system admin's mercy, humanity is marching with time, with time. Plato used to say time is the moving image of eternity. Just, it's so uniquely designed that I think it has, there's 100% some sort of metric here. We human beings are not just being judged by our outer realms, we're being judged by how we live behind our eyes. And my recommendation to the human species, the most advanced will arise through states of purity. That means the purity of one's being, which is maintained through decency. And decency means you're serving the world, because why not advance it while you're here? Alhamdulillah Rabbil Alameen. Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Thank you for listening.